Every year, more than 10 billion croissants are consumed worldwide, creating an enormous demand that requires highly scaled-up production.
Wow, it's so hot in here!
Oh gosh, a talking croissant!
In this factory, a massive slab of dough is about to be cut, folded, and rolled into 3,600 croissants. Just a small fraction of the 400,000 produced here every single day. Producing perfect croissants at this scale is no simple task. It's a precise operation that constantly balances timing and temperature. But how are these delicate, buttery layers of dough transformed into the iconic pastry? To find out, we visited one of the largest croissant factories in the world to take a closer look at how one of the world's most popular pastries is made. Though often seen as a symbol of French cuisine, the croissant actually has a rich history that many trace back to Austria. Regardless of its exact origins, today, the croissant has become a popular breakfast staple around the world. Whether enjoyed plain, paired with sweet jam, or dipped into a warm cup of coffee, it's a delicious way to start the day. It all begins in the wheat fields, where farmers carefully tend to each crop, closely monitoring the soil, moisture levels, and weather conditions to produce high-quality wheat grains. When harvest season arrives, massive combine harvesters go to work. With wide headers and sharp blades, they cut the wheat stalks at the base. The rotating reel feeds the stalks into the machine, where a threshing system separates the kernels from the husks using spinning drums and sieves. Once separated, the wheat kernels are collected in large onboard storage tanks. When full, the kernels are transferred to waiting trucks through an auger system. From the fields, the trucks transport the wheat directly to the milling facility. Here, the wheat is unloaded onto underground conveyor belts that carry it to the cleaning and sorting area. Stones, dirt, debris, and foreign seeds are removed to ensure only clean wheat moves forward. The cleaned wheat is then stored in silos, where controlled temperature and humidity preserve its quality. Because protein levels vary between wheat varieties, mills often blend different types to create flour with the desired properties. The mixture is cleaned once again before entering the grinding phase. In the first stage of milling, large roller mills crush the kernels, separating the soft white endosperm from the bran and germ. The flour then moves to the sifting stage. Sieves with varying mesh sizes separate coarse particles from the finer flour below. Typically, the flour must go through multiple cycles of grinding and sifting. After each pass, the fine particles are separated out, while the coarser material is sent back through the rollers for further milling. This process is repeated until the flour reaches the target particle size, approximately 8 mils. Once the flour reaches a fineness between 8 and 8.1 miles, it is considered ready, fine enough to absorb liquids efficiently and blend smoothly during baking and cooking. Once delivered to the factory, the bags of flour move into the critical mixing stage. Inside massive industrial mixers, the flour is combined with milk, salt, sugar, powdered milk, and finally, butter. Powdered milk is used instead of fresh milk because it has been dehydrated, allowing it to act as a dry ingredient that offers better moisture control in the dough. Cold water is also added, especially during hot summer days, to keep the mixture at the ideal temperature. If the dough becomes too warm, the yeast may activate prematurely, and the butter can start melting, which would break down the desired dough structure. Maintaining a cool dough temperature is key to precisely controlling the fermentation process. Finally, butter, the ingredient responsible for the croissant's signature rich flavor, is added. The entire mixture is kneaded for approximately 10 minutes. The mixer starts at a slow speed to gently incorporate the ingredients, then gradually increases speed to fully develop a smooth, elastic dough. Once the dough reaches the desired consistency, it continues its journey along the factory's advanced conveyor system. To maintain hygiene and prevent the dough from sticking to the surface, a thin layer of dry flour is evenly spread, creating a soft cushion for the dough to glide smoothly. Next, the dough passes through a series of multi-roller sheeters. A total of 16 rollers work in sequence, gradually flattening the dough into uniform sheets of consistent thickness. After sheeting, the dough is allowed to rest in a warm, carefully controlled environment where both temperature and humidity are precisely maintained. This resting phase activates the yeast, causing the dough to rise and form internal air pockets. Once the initial fermentation is complete, the dough undergoes a gentle degassing process to release some of the gas produced during fermentation, preparing it for the next stages of production. One of the key elements that give croissants their signature flavor and texture is the layer of butter laminated between sheets of dough. In a separate section of the factory, workers begin processing massive blocks of high-quality butter sourced from trusted suppliers. The factory uses European-style Bourramont butter with 83% fat content. Each 350-ounce block is cut into smaller portions before being fed into a mixer that softens and smooths the butter into a creamy, uniform consistency. During this stage, the butter is gently heated to its ideal temperature, making it easier to form uniform sheets. Next, the butter passes through a hydraulic press, which flattens it into thin, flexible sheets without raising the temperature. This ensures that both the butter and dough remain at similar temperatures. The butter is soft and pliable, but not overly softened, a precise balance that allows it to laminate smoothly between the dough layers. Operators carefully monitor and adjust the temperatures of both components to ensure perfect consistency during lamination. The butter sheet is placed in the center of the dough, and the dough's edges are folded over, fully enclosing the butter inside, completing what's known as the butter lock. This step is critical for creating the croissant's signature structure of hundreds of alternating layers of dough and butter. Even precise distribution of butter ensures that during baking, each layer puffs up evenly, resulting in the light, airy, and perfectly flaky texture that defines a well-made croissant. Next, the dough enters the lamination stage. With each fold and roll, the layers of dough and butter multiply. By the end of the process, each sheet contains a total of 24 precisely stacked layers of dough and butter. These alternating layers are what create the honeycomb-like structure and the crisp, flaky texture that define a perfectly baked croissant. Throughout the lamination process, maintaining strict temperature control is absolutely critical. Any deviation can compromise the entire batch. For example, if the butter is too cold, it may fracture into small shards and mix unevenly with the dough, breaking the integrity of the layers. On the other hand, if the dough itself becomes too cold, the sheets may tear during rolling. Even a minor error in temperature or technique during lamination can ruin hundreds of croissants, sometimes up to 500 or 600, forcing the entire batch to be discarded for failing to meet quality standards. Once lamination is complete, the dough is transferred to a controlled resting chamber, held at 55 degrees Fahrenheit for several hours. At this temperature, both the butter and dough remain pliable but do not ferment. This resting phase allows the butter to firm up while reducing the dough's elasticity, preparing it for the shaping process that follows. After the cold resting phase, the dough blocks, now containing layers of dough, butter, and dough, move on to additional rolling and stretching. During this stage, the dough is repeatedly folded and passed through rollers, continuously building up more alternating layers of butter and dough. The lamination process is repeated multiple times, and by the end, each dough sheet contains up to 240 ultra-thin layers. A hallmark of a well-made croissant is the ability to clearly see these distinct, alternating butter and dough layers. A specialized roller then glides across the dough's surface, widening the sheet and ensuring a perfectly even thickness of about 1/5 of an inch. Once the dough reaches the target dimensions, a cutting machine slices it into long strips, each measuring 4 inches wide. Next, a specialized roller equipped with triangular blades slices the dough strips into evenly sized triangles. An automated system then separates and aligns the triangles in the same orientation, always positioning the base of each triangle facing forward to streamline the rolling process that follows. The cutting speed is tightly controlled. Each triangle must be cut at precisely the right dough thickness to ensure consistent quality. Now ready for shaping. Each croissant triangle is weighed to ensure near-perfect uniformity. The factory allows for a maximum weight variation of just 0.1 ounces per piece, guaranteeing that among the 400,000 croissants produced daily, nearly everyone is identical in size, weight, and shape. On the conveyor belt, a guiding bar keeps the triangles neatly aligned as they approach the rolling station. Here, an automated system carefully rolls each piece from the wide base toward the pointed tip, applying just the right amount of pressure to hold the shape without tearing the delicate layers of dough. This ensures that every croissant maintains its classic crescent form. With this highly advanced production line, the factory is capable of producing up to 50,000 croissants per hour, maintaining an impressive and remarkably consistent pace. Beyond the traditional croissant, the factory also produces a variety of creative versions featuring different colors and shapes, offering consumers not only delicious flavors, but also visually striking and exciting new variations. The next stage brings the croissants into the proofing chamber, a carefully controlled environment filled with steam, where elevated temperature and humidity activate the yeast. Inside, the croissants proof for about 1 hour, allowing them to double in size. As the croissants warm up, moisture from both the butter and dough turns into steam, gently separating the layers and causing the pastry to rise. The more layers present, the more air pockets are formed, creating the light, airy structure that defines a well-made croissant. The proofing chamber is maintained at a steady 86 degrees Fahrenheit with 80% humidity. Throughout this phase, the yeast remains active, generating carbon dioxide gas that further expands the croissants. Proofing allows the laminated layers to gently stretch and create the necessary space for the thin, distinct layers to fully develop during baking. Before baking, each croissant is lightly coated with a glaze, most commonly a mixture of milk proteins and water, which gives the surface a smooth, shiny appearance once baked. Next, the croissants enter the convection oven, where they're baked at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Inside, hot air is evenly circulated through vents along both sides, with around 200 airflow adjustment points ensuring consistent temperatures from top to bottom. As the heat rises, the croissants gradually expand, forming their signature honeycomb structure inside. The butter melts evenly between the dough layers but remains trapped within the thin sheets. At the same time, the Maillard reaction begins, as proteins from the glaze interact with sugars in the dough, creating the croissant's crisp, golden brown exterior and irresistible buttery aroma. The ideal time to enjoy these pastries is once they've cooled to room temperature. At this point, the butter has settled back into the layers, excess steam has dissipated, and the flavors have fully balanced for the best possible taste. When sliced open, the croissant reveals its beautiful honeycomb interior, a key marker of quality. The crust should crackle with a crisp snap, while the interior remains soft, elastic, and smooth. After about 15 minutes of baking, the golden brown croissants are removed from the oven and enter the cooling phase, which lasts for approximately 1 hour. Gentle suction cups lift each croissant onto a spiral cooling tower, where they gradually cool as they travel down to the base. Proper cooling is crucial. If packaged while still warm, the soft interior could collapse. Once fully cooled, quality control staff inspect each croissant, removing any that don't meet exact standards. These rejected pieces are often set aside to serve as meals for the factory's workers. In the packaging area, the croissants are loaded onto conveyors, wrapped in protective cellophane, and sealed with heat to preserve their freshness. The highly efficient production line can fully package up to 50,000 croissants per hour. Each week, over 2 million perfectly baked pastries leave the factory, ready to be enjoyed by customers around the world. The next time you bite into a croissant, take a moment to appreciate the precision, care, and craftsmanship behind every flaky golden layer. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.